Great.
Welcome to the Policy Committee meeting for the Waukesha School Board, February 21st. Has the meeting been properly posted, Lynn? Yes. It has been, and we have no citizens here that are wishing to address us. And we are going to be dealing with just one action item and a bit of discussion and kind of refreshing about what will happen next in the process of the Neola policy procedures. So we do have an action item, and that is quite simply to approve the policy minutes from our January meeting. Do I have a motion to do so?
So moved. I wasn't here.
Okay. I don't know. You got the first? Greg? Second? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Any questions or changes about the minutes? Seeing none, we'll take a, I'll just say, anybody, all in favor of accepting the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
5-0, Lynn. And we'll move directly into the discussion items. And Joe is going to walk us through several steps here. We're going to be looking at the, first, the policy committee procedures in place in Waukesha.
Thank you. So as we have now approved, reviewed book, revised book in some instances of policy, some question came up about, what does the work look like going forward? And just wanted to take a little bit of time tonight to emphasize that we still have the committee structure in Waukesha. And so that's the first piece of this. In policy, in the bylaws 0150, we've included the committee structure policy for the school district of Waukesha. Just wanted to have this in here to orientate the committee as to, we are a committee-strong system where we're going to continue to look at and debate and review and revise any policies that are brought forward, and just wanted to show that that's anchored in the policies that we have adopted in the new book. So if there's any questions on that, I'll certainly take those, but just wanted to kind of bring us through that sequence of committee structure, policy adoption, and then take the committee tonight into what are their proposed revised policies, recommendations from Neola.
Right. So quite simply, that first discussion item is status quo as far as how we operate
Absolutely,
at the committee level.
absolutely.
And we'll get into a little bit more detail on the next two pieces of that. Any questions on the first part? Nothing new, okay. Then, the school district of Waukesha policy adoption process.
So yes, the next policy, bylaw 0130, does address policy to the board, and talks about two meeting reading, and then this just again reemphasizes that the committee is going to make a recommendation to the board for policy. The board will get to kick it around once. The committee will then have an opportunity to look at it again, and then a final recommendation will be made after two readings to the board.
As we have Barbara?
So we're going to discuss it at the policy committee level 2 times before it goes to the board.
It's going to go committee, board, committee, back to the
That's what I
board,
thought.
if
Okay.
necessary.
Yes, committee board, committee board.
You know,
yeah.
we have in the past put an option for the full board to waive a second reading
Mm-hmm.
should there be immediacy to the policy, but policies would be coming through committee for a first
Good.
read.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. And again, status quo. We are not changing anything we do procedurally. As we moved into the new set of policies, I'm just going to do a check with this. Is that, at this point, we only have them online to Lynn.
Right.
That's it. So just to refresh your memories here, and anybody that happens to be listening, you won't be able to get online yet to see the policies, but you can contact our offices through Lynn to get a copy of anything that's needed. Do we have any changes in the fact that they thought they'd get that done in a couple of weeks?
They're anticipating Friday. Richard was in
This
yesterday
Friday.
for a meeting with me and Lynn. They contacted the Neola offices, spoke to the president. We are on the top of the list, so they're anticipating electronic publication by Friday. So an active link.
That's because of the way we intimidated them at the convention.
Little arm twisting.
Is this,
That's next.
oh, that's next. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the first part? All right. And we're going to get a little bit more meaty on the item number 4. And that is the packet that you have on your desks. And I purposely asked Lynn and Joe not to put that in the packet, I guess, because we didn't want anybody thinking they had to read and understand all of that by today. This is just a taste of what's coming.
So yes, there's 2 documents that were on your table tonight. One of them is a yellow copy, which is consistent with the policy colors. The other one is white, just because we didn't want to use the yellow copy paper for this many copies. What you have in front of you, the first document, the yellow document, is a listing of all of the policies that Neola is saying are recommended for review by the districts that have purchased their service. And these policies, this document here gives the justification, it gives the why behind the policy change. When we met with Richard, these recommendations are coming based off of what would be a legal update, either from the federal government or from the state of Wisconsin. And they're stuff for us, they're policies for us to entertain. The white packet is the actual updated policy template from Neola. Now, I'm not asking the committee to go through word for word and debate that. That would be a change in what our process has been. What will be happening is these will come to us twice a year. There's usually a fall one and a winter update, spring update for us. And I'll be working with the executive cabinet from the respective departments to take a look at what the policies are, what the recommendation is, do we need to make the change? And then I will be bringing to committee what the administrative recommendation is, consistent with how we've operated in years past. What else, the other component to this is it's electronic, but it also comes in this pink form. And I think that this is going to be something that's very valuable to us. This is going to allow us to track policy by policy the history of what we do. So that it is going to be able to say policy 0151.2 recommended change came in the spring of
Great.
2017. The district chose to adopt it. The district chose to modify it. The district chose to table it. The district chose to reject it. We'll be able to keep that log then in, with Neola, because Neola has guaranteed the policies that they have in essence drafted for us, given that legal support. So
Barb?
Yes, so therefore, it won't say on the written copy of the policies, on the bottom, it would always say, reviewed last date, or last date reviewed. It won't say that.
it's not
at
going to
all.
have a history of
Okay.
of
Of
review
dates.
dates.
Okay.
And that kind of brings up another thing. The policies, once they're drafted,
Yes.
I would direct you, if you wanted to take a look at like the Greenfield School District and what their policies look like online, because that'll be very similar to what the texts of our policies would look like. They're not going to be the same, but it'll give you a little bit of an idea as to what a online published policy would look like. On each form, there's a little printer icon, so if somebody wanted to have a paper copy, they could print the paper copy for themselves. But it's not going to have that running history of dates on the bottom of it. All of our policies were adopted on January or February
Before-
9th, I think. And so that's really the beginning
So
of
we're
what
starting
our
over.
policy book is. Even though the text in most of our policies is historical Waukesha policy, it's just going to have a beginning because the board adopted the book on that evening.
If you look at some of the examples in this yellow part of the handout, underneath each one of them will say, this is like the first 0151.2, this revision should be made for compliance with state law, and if you look on a couple of them on the inside, this new policy is recommended but not required, so we're getting some guidance from them as to whether it is optional or not, or
Right, they're explicit with
you can always
which,
say, we don't want it, even if it's required, but that would be foolish.
right. It really does benefit us if there was a change in law, we should be making a change in policy. From an administrative perspective, getting this update twice a year is gonna be quite beneficial because it's gonna direct me, the executive cabinet, towards what we need to do so that we can make a solid recommendation to the board. Instead of having to wait for something to come up or hear about something at a conference, it's gonna be delivered to us ahead of time.
Barb?
But this is not all the district policies, is it?
No, our district, if printed, our district policies would be similar in length to
Yeah,
those
like
4
that.
books, yep.
Okay.
That is just a semi-annual update.
Well, then how did we have that binder in years past? You know,
Really, that's based off of the fact that there was no electronic publishing of policies. Districts kept a paper copy.
yes,
When districts moved towards electronic publishing, many districts discontinued updating their paper manuals in
Okay.
the office.
okay.
With the exception, sometimes the superintendent's office kept one up to date in the event that the system went down and they needed to reference a policy.
Thank you.
So in lieu of the, I'm sorry, let me get a quick one out of the way. And, because you started on this, that pink sheet that you have,
Correct. Yep.
which really does replace our old logging system at the bottom, is that maintained in your offices? That's
Yes,
where it
it'll be
would
maintained electronically, and it'll be maintained with Neola access to it, so that they will know, again, if we're challenged on policy, they'll know which policies, what our history of support was, so that if the policy needs to be defended, we need to be defended, they know where we're at with that policy revision.
Yeah, so just to kind of summarize, our committee process is still the same.
Absolutely.
The administrative process is still the same. But really what kind of triggers the whole process is what's different. You guys used to have to kind of take note of changes, you know, whether WASB informed us in a newsletter saying, hey, you should check this policy out. So Neola is going to be the primary trigger for policy change. But there still will always be policy change triggered from requests from board members, or perhaps when citizens challenge us on things through our regular committee and board meetings, we can then agendize those. But that's really the value, having Neola trigger, especially those legal changes for consideration, and then be able to concentrate on them. I don't know, how many are there? They're like maybe 20 or 30 just in the last 6 months.
Yeah,
That we need to, so we were worried about what we were gonna be doing.
Right.
Well, I don't think we have to worry about that. So we'll probably just, is there any particular order that they help you to take this in? I mean, do they say, look, these are ones that you need to pay attention to right now? If there is something immediate, do they put that flag up?
The trigger for me is gonna be, this is a law change. This is a change to remain compliant with state statute. This is a change to remain, that'll be the trigger for me to come to committee and say, this is one that needs to be entertained first. There are other policies there that are recommended changes, but not necessarily changes that we have to follow. So there may be, and I'd have to dig in
But
here
just
for
to
one.
interrupt, Joe, I think when you and I were talking, if something comes out at a federal level or even a state level that is urgent, it doesn't wait for the 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so that's a good point. If there's a legislative session where, for instance, they're working on passing the budget right now, if there's a budget change that would impact state statute or how, K-12 needs to operate, Neola will be sending us an urgent policy update that will be agendized with committee immediately. It may or may not go through the traditional process in that we may request that the second reading be waived because of the timing on the policy. And
Right.
sometimes that just butts up against, by June, whatever, you need to have this in policy in order to do something. that would trigger a shortened timeline.
Okay. And the 6-month list that's put together, will your administrative team have the goal of trying to bring those forward within 6 months of committee work to get through them all?
Absolutely. We're, after the meeting tonight at next week's cabinet meeting, I'm going to be touching base with all the other assistant superintendents. We're going to be going department by department and scheduling some time to sit down and review the requested change. And then we'll be agendizing those changes going forth through about the June timeline. I'd like to make sure that everything's done by June, just because July really is the new school year, and, try to get anything done in that 6-month window.
So we'll probably have 5 to 7 each month roughly?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Glad you said that, because I don't want anybody to think this comes in a chunk.
Yeah, I think it would be difficult to thoroughly examine 30 in one meeting. I mean, we need to take the time to debate and to really, we went through our 400 in a flash, so, in a year.
I'm not teeing us up for another marathon.
Yes.
Oh, okay, Barbara?
How often will they come out with this? Every month?
Twice a year.
Oh, twice a year. So when is the next time this is going to come out?
They do a spring one and a fall one.
Okay, so by the time fall comes, we should have gone through these.
Correct.
Okay, that gives us a couple of months. We can do that.
So,
And it was also very briefly stated in here, we will continue to have a need to be watching our policies from our perspective, and there might be changes being made to the policies internally, and of course fed back to Neola, but we don't abdicate the responsibility of keeping our policies, in the way we want to look at them.
yeah, everybody who had a responsibility prior to February
Still has
has the same responsibility after February. We all own the same work and the same process we're committed to, and we're just, I think, a little bit more efficient in getting the updates.
Barbara?
Who comprises the Administrative Guidelines Committee? I'm not interested in names, just, are they principals? Who are they?
It really depends on the department.
Okay.
So if there's an administrative guideline, and we're going to begin that development at the end of March. Administrative guidelines will be, if I'm thinking of it like a HR type policy, it's going to be a smaller committee working on it, because Chris Hedstrom's really taken the lead on, or a guideline. It's going to be how Chris Hedstrom operates certain HR
Sure.
pieces. If it's an instructional policy, a student-related policy, that would be assistant superintendents, directors, principals, probably down to coordinators, and then the associated administrative assistants will get together, just similar to how we got together this past summer. But Todd then, it becomes Todd's rules for how the policy is going to be implemented across our system.
You bring the whole group in, huh?
Correct.
Wow, it's a lot of people.
It's important that everybody's involved. In one of my prior
It is.
districts, we began
It is.
the work, and a couple of people tried to fast track things, and they did it, regardless of what was actually happening. And so after the policies were passed, and then after administrative guidelines were passed associated with those, a principal would take a look at it, and they found that we really require 3 units of math instead of 2. We really, and so we just want to make sure that everybody's at the table, so that we can say we did our due diligence to make sure nothing was missed.
That certainly will work with a trust factor in our climate. Not that we don't have it now, but, it's just another thing that we'll
It's got to
do.
be transparent,
Yes.
and most importantly, the people who need to carry out the guideline, they need to have a voice in what it looks like when
That's
it's
right.
development, and an understanding.
That's right.
So, and our principals have been very willing, and our coordinators and our administrative assistants have engaged this process. As people attended the work sessions in the summer, it was a mixed group of folks sitting around talking about what needed to go into policy. The same thing is going to happen for guidelines.
Sure.
I'm going to ask Greg and Amanda, we've really poured a lot of stuff at you two guys over the last almost a year now that we started this, but
almost a
I
year.
guess it's important we know that you're in sync with what's going on. You okay?
Understand it?
That's really what we got together for you, right? We got any more?
I don't have, I'm here for questions. Understand, just like when you had the big blue books in front of you, what you have in front of you tonight is not implemented as policy. There's been no change made to what was approved last week. All of this is informational, reference point for our administration and then for our committee. So that's going to be coming up, I'd say, in the months ahead.
I would say that even though the administrative team is going to be looking at this first, it doesn't hurt to flip through this and get kind of a feel for what is going on and how it happens and how it gets communicated to us, because that's going to be a big piece of our needs.
I'm sorry for keep asking questions, but can the Administrative Guideline Committee come up with a new policy? And then, no, it always comes,
Always
From
comes
the
to,
other?
no.
No?
No, it always comes from this committee
from
to
this
the
committee?
board. I mean, so
Okay.
they could come up with a policy idea,
Okay,
but it would
Forward
have
to
to
here.
come to this committee before it goes.
There's
It
a
goes in.
semantics thing going on, Barbara. The administrative committee that Joe is talking
Yes.
about is not the administrative guideline committee. The guidelines are another thing we're getting into soon.
Yep.
That's another whole
okay.
pie.
And if you,
Because I remember that we would say over the years, well, we'll refer to the Administrative Policy Committee.
That-
No more.
That's correct.
That is correct. Okay,
That would be the ones he's been talking about.
okay, thank you.
It's a big nut to chew on.
Oh, wow, it sure is.
Anybody, anything?
just to reiterate, we're hoping for electronic publishing by Friday.
That's amazing.
We said 2 weeks, I said about 2 weeks at the board meeting, and it turns out to be 2 weeks, 2 days, if it does go through, so I'm pretty satisfied with that. I would say that Lynn has had a few policy requests from people where they have gone to the website, so the information was clear on the website to contact Lynn. Lynn has provided them with what was the approved policy in February. So those have been distributed to principals and parents who have had questions. And we've not seen we've not found a glitch in that at all. We did have one person request the entire policy book. I spoke with them on the phone and said, I would be sending you about 1,000 pages to print. They just then tailored their request down to a few, knowing that it was going to be up shortly.
Well, go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, I'm sorry.
End of the thought.
What's going online, the policies that are going online, will there be an index? So if I'm a topic I might be interested in, that's how I'm going to find out which policy it's contained in?
Be able to go to a drop-down menu. You'd click
Okay.
that. It would be policies 0000
Okay,
to
great,
9,000.
great.
You'd click on that.
Okay.
That would then open up all
Open
of the
up,
other
okay.
policies, and then you'd be able to go individually to the policy that you had a question on.
Will there be directions on how to use it online, since it's so new?
It's really not that different than what we had in the past.
But for
It's-
parents it is.
No, it's really the same. I mean, our old website said, select your policy series, you'd click on it.
Yeah.
You'd get our old series on there,
Okay.
you'd click on that, and then you'd
Okay.
be able to find which policy you were looking for.
All right,
This is the same thing, it's just in a
Okay.
different hosting format. So
Okay.
you'll still click on policy, you'll still be able to access the series.
And beyond that, explain the keyword search part.
Yes, so if you're looking for harassment, you'll have a search feature where you can click harassment, and then every policy that deals with harassment will pop up for you.
oh, wow,
If you're looking for curriculum, you type in curriculum, every policy that says curriculum. If it's athletics and activities, you type in athletics and so on and so forth. So the quick reference piece is gonna be that much faster than what our old system
good,
was.
oh, good.
Yeah, I appreciate you reporting out that there were only a few people who contacted Lynn, and that's good. And I think that really goes back to the planning that Joe and others have put into this. You didn't have this on, August 25th coming up live. Some good thought was put into it. I was a little concerned during this couple-week period of time how many calls Lynn might be getting, and I'm glad that they were minimized. And I also think that the new tool is going to be super powerful. It's going to really help not just us out, but any parent or student who wants to look things up, the search tool will be very powerful. And I think this is just a huge step up for us.
I would agree.
I think the fact that they've been able to put this online within 2 weeks and a couple of days also speaks to the fact that we did a good job in the preparation, because when we talked to Richard at the convention, I mean, putting aside all the teasing and all the stuff like that, this district did a good job. They had their work done.
And a lot of credit needs to go to Lynn.
I was just going to say that. She beat me to it.
The minute that our work groups got together, when policy committee would meet, she took those updates right back to that big file that we were ready to send off, and she was making those corrections in time. And so, it's a testament to what Lynn was able to stay on top of, but then also the clarity that we got from the committee and the board on what recommendations were needed. There was very good pointed conversation around policy updates, so Lynn didn't walk away from the meetings wondering what's happening here. She always had some clear direction, so.
Thank you, Lynn.
Greg?
Bill, Joe, has there been communication to staff as to how this is all rolling out?
Yeah, the day after the board approved the book, I sent an email to all of our principals, letting them know that policies were updated, that if they had any questions, they should be reaching out immediately to me or to Lynn. There were no questions from that. I also had an article in the Connect to all staff, which has really been the vehicle that people are going to. And again, there have been no questions really on policy. In those areas that it was important, Chris Hedstrom's in the hiring process. We made sure that she had the printed off copies for the HR policies. For student discipline, we've had that readily available for principals should questions come up on discipline. For some of our policies where we migrated our old policy guidelines into policy as we did this adoption, those people have been directed to those as well, and student discipline was one of those.
Good.
Very thorough, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we have only the other item on there is, if you have recommendations for items to be discussed at upcoming meetings, bring it online to us, not online, but I can't use that anymore. It's too confusing. No?
I think if I may just add one thing.
Sure, please. I wanna get on
Neola is
tour.
migrating to board docs, and I don't know if you've been familiar with board docs. It's
You showed me.
an electronic platform where school districts are housing a lot of their board, their minutes, their agendas, where board members are being sent the packets for meetings. So it's all done electronically instead of the old paper format. One of the things that I just like for you to consider is as we get these updates here, we're able to navigate this electronically in the future, where we would be able to send to you this packet so that we wouldn't constantly be working off of paper as we're doing this. And was something to consider. I know that iPads have been distributed and we have access to the technology only for these major updates, not for agendas, but just for that big stuff. So.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, board docs is something that we could use for literally every committee, though.
Correct.
I mean, it's been around a while. It actually was tossed out as an idea in this district about 10 years ago, but we weren't really ready for it. I think if it has 10 more years under its belt, it probably is a pretty mature product, I would think. And maybe we could even get a little bit of a tour of that if we were ever seriously considering that.
And that is where policy will be housed. So when you do go to the website and you click on the links, you're going to be entering a board doc portal. That's for board members, that's for community members, it's anybody who goes at it. So it's really then doing the add-ons beyond that committees would have to entertain in the whole board.
Maybe we can just be the guinea pigs for that, so.
Thanks a lot, Joe. They don't live that long anymore. Okay, our next meeting would be exactly 1 month from today, 21st of March. And that Isn't that supposed to be the first day of spring or something like that? We'll see, right?
Might be.
It is.
Okay, we are adjourned.